Hey, it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back for another video. It's been far too long since I discussed the beloved 90s kids show Wishbone on my channel, so that's what I'm going to do today. Wishbone, the PBS kids show from the late 90s that followed Wishbone, a Jack Russell Terrier with a love of literature, who lives with his owner Joe Talbot and his mom Ellen, was a staple in many a household in the 90s, and I, like many a 90s kid, grew up watching and loving Wishbone. It was a way to introduce kids to the works of Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Cervantes, and even Jane Austen.
For a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Yes, he must indeed.
Something that y'all might not know is that in addition to Star Trek, I'm also a big fan of period dramas and historical fashion. And do I have opinions on period dramas that could probably fill up entire video series on this channel? Seriously, if I had the time and budget, I would totally make a Mystery Science Theater show for period dramas. It would be called Wazterpiece Theater. It was the 1995 miniseries of Pride and Prejudice, yes, the 5-hour-long one, that kicked off my love of period dramas. And Colin Firth. But before that, I watched Pride and Prejudice via the Wishbone episode, Furst Impressions. Now, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a Waz in possession of a YouTube channel must be in want of a subject for a video. So today, I, a Jane Austen fan, shall revisit the lovable Jack Russell Terrier and an adaptation of one of my favorite books. Also, just a heads up that I'm probably going to go on many a rant in this video and be overly critical of a children's show.
I want to tell you about
Pride and Prejudice.
But before I go further, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about Star Trek, video games, and whatever else I feel like talking about. And if you'd like to help support the channel, consider becoming a member. Be great to have you aboard. The Beach Party Social is coming up on Saturday in the gym. So, it's not so much a beach party, but a gym party made to look like a beach minus the sand and water, so it's just a party social. I wrecked this episode already, didn't I?
Yes, I did.
Wishbone is patiently waiting for Joe after school by the bike racks, who is also accompanied by his friends Sam and David. But uh-oh, here comes obligatory 90s bad boy Demont, and Wishbone sees that his shoes are a little too dry.
I'll be the one watering their Alvera trees.
Demont is also going to the dance on Saturday and was wondering if Joe, Sam, and David were all going because he's got a little setting up to do.
I want to know where to set up the losers only section.
Look, Demont, for the last time, we're not sitting with you.
All the cool people have dates. You're cool?
But Demont does come away with one insult that really gets under Joe's skin. Your clothes are dumb. Except they're pretty standard 90s attire. The hair, the plaid shirt, the jeans. Isn't every kid wearing this circa 1995? Wishbone, however, gets the final say in staining Demont's jeans forever.
Didn't you know that paw print pants are the latest fad?
Back at the Talbot residence.
What's wrong with how I dress?
Honestly, nothing. You're dressed like a 90s kid in the 90s. Poor Wishbone just wants to eat while the kids are discussing the dance.
All those people staring at you. Ooh, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I mean, everybody just stands around. People get so weird.
So, why are you guys going? It's the 90s. There's some great TV on that night. But, I know, socializing. But all this talk about party anxiety is the perfect segue for Wishbone to start talking about Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
Back in 1813, she wrote a juicy, meaty book about people and parties.
I mean, yes, but there's more to it than that. Main character Elizabeth Bennet is digging in the garden when her older sister Jane brings her inside because there's a rich hot man moving into the neighborhood and he's throwing a party.
I dare say he will marry one of you.
Hold up! Lizzie, what the hell are you wearing? That outfit is literally last century. See, Pride and Prejudice takes place in the early 1800s where fashion looked like this. Notice the high waistline. Elizabeth is wearing what looks like a generalized 18th century dress. The sleeve ruffles, the low waist, even the stomacher in the middle of her dress. Or apron, I can't really tell what's going on there. But still, it's a very 18th century look, and not even late 18th century. Like, literally everyone else in the scene is wearing roughly the correct attire.
How we dress will not matter in the light of how we behave.
Oh, don't worry, I'll get to that.
Are you finished?
I haven't even begun.
Local rich hot newcomer Mr. Bingley and his sister Caroline move into the neighborhood and throw a party to meet the neighbors as one typically does. And hold up, bare shoulders? Bare shoulders? Someone call temporal investigations. Future attire has invaded Mr. Bingley's party. Off-the-shoulder dresses with big sleeves like that wouldn't become a thing until the 1830s. Why? Why is the costuming department doing this to me? Mr. Bingley, in his freakishly huge tie, meets the Bennets.
This is my eldest, Jane. And these are my other girls.
Way to play favorites, Mom! Mr. Bingley hits it off with Jane almost immediately. Caroline walks over and Bingley introduces her, as well as his even better looking and even more filthy stinking rich friend, Mr. Darcy. Now, I know what you all are thinking, and no, they couldn't get Colin Firth for this public access television kids show, so they had to make do with the next best thing.
Mr. Darcy is nervous at parties. So nervous, he seems rude.
No. Look, I know it's a kids show, and I shouldn't nitpick so hard because things have to be simplified for a half-an-hour episode, but it wasn't so much that as it was that Mr. Darcy flat out thought he was better than everyone else in the room. He's of a higher class, and even his mother was a part of the nobility, which even puts him a step above Mr. Bingley, whose father made his fortune in trade. Which also highlights the hypocrisy of Caroline, who acts like she's all that, when in reality, her own father was basically like the people she's surrounded by at the party that she's insulting. While money certainly plays a role in social status at this time, class is a major player and is a reason why you can have people who are massively in debt still hanging around high society because they have the family name. But who cares? He's so stinking cute! Bingley and Jane go off to dance, Caroline pounds a few shots back, tosses the cup behind her, and proceeds to insult Lizzie's dress.
What a lovely dress.
Thank you.
I had one very like it in London 3 or 4 seasons ago.
Actually, Lizzie's ball gown is passable. Heck, it's not even the most anachronistic outfit at the party.
Good evening.
These country balls are horrid. Nothing like London.
Okay, stop! This is gonna be a long video. I really hate the way Caroline is played here. She's supposed to be an elegant lady who's also very snobbish and haughty. She looks down at everyone, but she has the reputation of a great lady. Classy, if you will. This isn't elegant. Downing drinks like she's about to do karaoke, tripping over anachronisms, flashing her leg, talking loudly.
These country balls are horrid.
Her jewelry flying up into a cup full of punch? I mean, I'll give her credit for the aim. I think the writers are playing it up for comedy since Jane Austen is known for using satire in her books. But the thing about this episode is that it plays up the wrong parts for comedy and subdues the ones that should. Caroline should be more subdued. Mrs. Bennet, on the other hand, should be played up.
Spasms in my side and pains in my head and beatings at my heart that I can get no rest either night or day.
Again, I get this is a kids show, and a kids show that I hold dear, but this episode gets a lot of things about Pride and Prejudice wrong, and it wouldn't be that hard to make it more understandable for younger audiences while keeping the spirit of the book. Meanwhile, Mr. Darcy is on the couch minding his own business, avoiding everyone wanting to pet him. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Come, Darcy. I must have you dance.
Bingley, you know I don't like dancing with strangers. Besides,
I'm a dog. And within earshot is Lizzie hearing this entire conversation about how Mr. Darcy isn't interested in country girls. Which I know makes it sound like they're about to dance the Cotton Eye Joe, but they're not.
Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from?
Bingley says he's being too fastidious, and hey, what about Elizabeth Bennet standing about 10 feet away from us in earshot?
And why should I dance with her when nobody else will?
I certainly do not need to beg him to be my partner.
I don't beg.
Back in the 90s, Joe's trying to convince his mom he needs some new shoes, even though the shoes he's wearing now he got last month. Joe, claiming that his shoes hurt his feet, pathetically limps to his mother. He better not have won an Oscar for that performance. That's worthy of a Razzie. And doing a Riker lean, Ellen surmises that his shoes are perfectly fine.
These would fit a lot better.
These are way too expensive.
Well, you could take it out of my allowance.
Or Joe can take his math skills he learned from a few episodes ago and work another yard sale where he can struggle to calculate 10%.
This jacket's 10%.
You don't have to have expensive clothes to make people like you.
I don't even have clothes.
Yeah, but Joe doesn't want to get arrested.
Everybody gotta wear clothes, and if you don't, you get arrested.
Sam, what do you think of these shoes?
Will you lay off the shoes, Joe? We got more important things to worry about.
I heard from Robin's friend Tia that DeMont found out that David's going to the dance with Amanda.
Finally, something important.
Well, I heard that you asked Nathaniel Bobaleski.
The kid with enough Benadryl to fuel a kid's soccer team?
Cough syrup, cough drops, decongestant, stomach soother, eardrops, eye drops, poison ivy lotion, elastic bandages, inhaler, and a snake bite kit. Just in case we need it.
So rumor has it that all is not well with the three friends. And you know who else started rumors? Caroline Bingley, because she likes Mr. Darcy. Or at least that's what Wishbone claims, but again, not entirely accurate. So Caroline's hanging around with Mr. PUPCY, and good lord, she's got a cone head! Now, I think I understand what the costumers were doing here. Ancient Grecian styles were a thing back then, and it showed up in ladies' hairstyles at the time. This, however, is ridiculous, and she should sue.
You look ridiculous. You should sue.
I have heard on good authority, Mr. Darcy, that you have developed a preference for Miss Elizabeth Bennet.
Now, the way this is played off is basically like the book, but it wasn't so much spreading rumors as it was teasing. It'd almost be like saying, "Ha ha, you like Miss Bennet."
I'm afraid, Mr. Darcy, that this escapade may have affected your admiration for her fine eyes.
Not at all. They were brightened by the exercise.
Of course, I don't know how that would be attractive to anyone, let alone the guy you're hitting on, but Caroline gonna Caroline. The scene itself isn't wrong per se, but Wishbone's intro into it kind of is. Meanwhile, Lizzie's getting to know Mr. Wickham, an old friend of Mr. Darcy's.
Oh, what I could say. His dear father was my godfather.
I can't take this guy seriously!
Now I am poor.
So Wickham is gossiping like a high school girl with an earshot of everyone in the room, something he probably picked up from Mr. Darcy, so everyone gets to hear all the juicy deets about him.
It has to be made public.
Not by me.
So the next dance comes round and...
I insist you dance with us.
Bingley, you know I've got 4 left feet.
Bingley begins leading Jane, Lizzie, and Darcy to the dance floor, and good lord, is that a poncho?! So Caroline starts talking smack about Wickham, which is what happens in the novel, though at a later time, all while stuffing her face, which didn't happen in the book. Oh, you got a little barbecue sauce there. So Lizzie and Mr. Darcy are dancing, which does follow the basic conversation they have during the dance in the book, and is a solid abridged version.
I guess you prefer to criticize everyone.
No, that's my job. Back in the 90s, Joe goes back home to go through his smelly, lame clothes.
This one smells funny.
His clothes are lame.
Oh, just buy a new outfit for the party already. Joe tells Ellen about Sam and David's fight and how he's also mad because now there's no reason to go to the dance. Ellen tells him that if he lets this sit too long, it's just going to be harder to fix, but Joe doesn't want to choose sides between his two friends. Back in Austen land, Bingley has one hell of a photographic memory and is a pretty good little artist. He's clearly got it bad for Jane. Girl, what the hell are you doing?
It's time to give you the facts of life.
Did the guy's like, what, pushing 30 and he doesn't know? Darcy and Caroline convince Bingley that Jane isn't of their class and that it just won't work out, so they return to London, upsetting the Bennet household.
My only consolation is that you may die of a broken heart. Then he will be sorry.
And if you think that that's an exaggerated line, no, that's a legit line from Pride and Prejudice.
My comfort is she will die of a broken heart and then he'll be sorry for what he's done.
Flipping back to the 90s, Joe confronts Amanda and Nathaniel about the rumors, and they deny it and don't know who started it.
I heard that Samantha really wanted a date, but that she couldn't get one. If you really want a date, I'll go with you.
Dude, what? There are false rumors flying around, but that's the one you believe? And way to go offering Sam a pity date. Joe, you deserve to get kicked out of her house at that point. Meanwhile,
Mr. Darcy met Elizabeth again when she visited friends at Hunsford in the countryside.
More like weird cousin that tried to propose to her and was rejected, and her friend that he ended up marrying anyways, but sure, friends.
You were asked to speak with me, Mr. Darcy?
Yeah, the 18th century called. They want their dress back.
I've struggled in vain. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you.
Girl, why are you happy? You don't like him!
It's ridiculous for me, a Darcy, to love you, who have no fortune at all.
I've been holding off this criticism for a while now. One of the things that annoys me when people talk about Pride and Prejudice, beside the fact that it's labeled a romance when Jane Austen was too sarcastic for a straight-up romance, is that the Bennets are presented as being poor. They're not. Mr. Bennet, who's absent from this episode altogether, actually has a pretty decent income. He's not Bingley rich, but he does alright. He's got property, he and his family live comfortably, and they even have servants. The Bennets are roughly what we would think of as middle class. Not wealthy, but comfortable. The problem is that because Mr. Bennet's estate is entailed and he has no sons, the property doesn't pass to his wife or daughters upon his death. It goes to, well, the weird cousin. Lizzie and her sisters have about £1,000 each as an inheritance they get when Mr. Bennet dies, which isn't very much, and that's about it. It's the main reason why they need to find good husbands and why it's hard for them to attract a rich man. They don't bring much to the table upon marriage.
Well, you don't offer much, do you?
Know this one?
A lot of the disdain that Caroline and also Mr. Darcy initially shoves towards the Bennets in this episode is that they're poor, and that's not accurate. I know it's a kids show and the kids are probably keeled over with talk of entail law, but it just annoys me that the Bennets are reduced to being a poor family when they're not.
But also annoys us.
This is brought up during the Wishbone proposal scene, and it's probably easier for the kids to understand why he's reluctant to marry Elizabeth. But if the episode went the way of the book, or even the 1995 miniseries where he just blatantly starts insulting her family, I think the job would have been accomplished.
The relative situation of our families is such that any alliance between us must be regarded as a highly reprehensible connection.
Marry me.
But I cannot.
Pardon?
You're just not Colin Firth. Mr. PUPCY tries to defend himself, but of course, Wickham's story comes up.
Wickham? That tomcat!
Look, I love a cute doggy, but Colin Firth.
His misfortunes, yes, his misfortunes have been great indeed.
I know I sound really rude and arrogant, but I'm really just the nicest guy. Is this the part where you shut the door in my face? Yes, it is.
And this is your opinion of me?
Meanwhile,
tonight's gonna be the beach party anti-social.
The day of the party arrives with some weak dancing, lots of standing around and drinking punch, and ripping napkins alone at a table. Joe basically has to force David and Sam to apologize to each other, which is surprisingly effective.
You're both wrong and too proud to admit it.
The three friends all apologize, even though Joe didn't really do anything, and we go to finish off Pride and Prejudice. Mr. Darcy brings Mr. Bingley back to Jane with another freakishly large bow.
Elizabeth found out that George Wickham was a big liar.
Oh, talk about a frick understatement! Y'all want to know what really happened? Yes, Wickham lied about Mr. Darcy, But he also almost ran off to elope with Mr. Darcy's sister and her nice fortune until Mr. Darcy stopped them, and then a year later eloped with Elizabeth's youngest sister, Lydia. Only they never got married and were living in a little hole in the wall. Oh yeah, and Lydia was only 16 at the time, and this would have royally screwed over the Bennet daughters from finding husbands. Mr. Darcy basically threw a shotgun wedding so Wickham would marry Lydia and save all their reputations. Obviously, some of these details are a little bit much for a kids' show, but it bears mentioning. Lizzie and Mr. PUPCY are digging together in the garden, and they agree that they could have behaved better as Mr. Bingley proposes to Jane. They agree to be friends and hold hands. Because I guess it would have been too weird for Elizabeth to accept a second proposal from a dog, but not too weird to receive the first one.
Everyone's getting kisses. It's gonna be a fabulous except me.
Meanwhile, everyone's starting to have fun at the dance, and they find the source of the rumors. Mr. Pee-Pee Pants himself, Demont, who shows up dateless, which is what he roasted Joe about at the start of the episode.
She couldn't make it. She had a cold, and I didn't want to get sick.
I don't believe you. And it turns out that Joe's shirt was inside out the entire time, Sam spits her drink out, and they all learned an important lesson.
Get the facts straight from the horse's mouth.
So you table the label and wear your own name.
And that was Furst Impressions, the Wishbone version of Pride and Prejudice. I know I was harsh on it, and that I'm spoiled by the 1995 miniseries, which is as close to reading the book as you can get without actually reading it. But the Wishbone adaptation is a very simplistic version of the story that misrepresents a lot of details. That being said, the basic plot points of the book are still there, even with some of the lines from the book maybe slightly rewritten for a younger audience. If you're introducing Jane Austen to a younger audience, this is fine. Her books do have a lot of talking back and forth, which might be tough for younger audiences to get into, whereas here, you get the basic gist of the conversation. And as much as I rag on the costuming in this episode, it's worth noting that the lower necklines for ball gowns were kept in the episode. For a kids show, I thought that would have been sanitized, but they maintained accuracy there. And as for the 90s story, it's alright, but I'm not sure how well it fits into Pride and Prejudice since it focuses more on rumors rather than proper manners or not judging a book by its cover. It's a little odd that Sam and David turned on each other so quickly because of rumors they overheard, but I suppose you need something to move the plot forward. Overall, this is a pretty middle-of-the-road episode for Wishbone. Nothing really groundbreaking, but certainly doesn't take the leaps in logic that The Canine Cure did. As an Austen fan, this episode is a little tough to watch, but for a kid new to Jane Austen, it's probably okay. And at the end of the day, while Wishbone is no Colin Firth, he still ends up being the second best Mr. Darcy. So what do you think? Did you watch the Wishbone episode Furst Impressions? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you a Jane Austen fan who watched it? And what do you think? What are some of your favorite Wishbone episodes, or what works of literature do you wish Wishbone covered? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another video. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
Oh, what I could say...